Take two, as Paul Threat thankfully realized that my mic somehow had changed from between whatever.
You sound better.
Well, anyways, as I was trying to explain to Paul, Phil Spencer did an interview this morning, or I guess maybe yesterday or sometime with Bloomberg.
Yeah, I did actually see it.
Well, good, because the TLDR of this is they're going to do a handheld, not anytime soon.
Yeah, well,
But
yes.
kind of, like they're exploring it, but whatever. The bigger one that is going to make everybody angry on multiple levels is he basically just came out and said, look, any game that we make now could end up on PlayStation, and we'll deal with it then.
Yeah.
He said
Look,
he explicitly called out Halo. He's like, it's too early. Not that Halo won't ever, but that it's too early to decide.
Yeah, there's also a mobile bit to this that's related to acquisitions and things.
Yeah.
And look, every one of those things speaks to the thing they've been very explicit about. You know, Xbox is this big tent now, and it's not just about the console, but they're kind of, not just him, but Sarah Bond, all the other people at Xbox who speak publicly about the stuff have to be careful here because this is a sensitive audience that wants consoles. So he does say, look, there are going to be devices, you know, some of those, they're looking at mobile things right now, mobile devices, right?
Yep.
We're still years out, but he says, look, the future of this, and the future of this is trying to grow this business, is not $1,000 console, which is, I guess, some finger pointing towards Sony or something. I mean, you know, and yes, that's true, right? It's definitely not. One thing I've experienced this year, and I've talked about a lot, is that mainstream laptops can suddenly play games really well, like good games. And I think that changes the dynamic a little bit, right? And that the Xbox from its inception was really a PC-based device, right? That was the idea. You know, you can take your skills from the PC and run it on this hardware, which, by the way, is PC hardware at the time, right?
Yeah.
The first version, and is arguably again now. So
here's a crazy thing that just popped through my head. Here's a crazy thought. Crazy thought from Brad. What if, and I've mentioned this in like passing, like how it could work. What if for the traditional console that sits under the TV, like they truly do just farm it out, and they're like, look, this is the spec you have to build to, and it'll be Xbox compliant. It'll run Xbox games as we know them today. And then Microsoft actually then pivots its capital to just building a handheld. They say, look, we're not going to do under TV consoles anymore. We're going to Dell, HP, everybody else can do it. We're just going to do a handheld.
Yeah. So I don't know that anyone knows that is,
right.
You know, or whatever the future is, right? But I think you said two things that I think are on the table, right? And could be combined into one thing, right? So that one possible future is what you said, that Xbox as a platform is farmed out to third-party hardware makers, which solves the problem of Microsoft making money losing hardware. You know, some smaller companies with thinner margins could maybe make a go of that business and make it make sense. I think he did say something about mobile, but I've sort of said, well, we look at the Switch. I mean, there's a thing there, you know, this notion of a device that could sit under your TV or come with you on a bus in the morning when you go to work or whatever it is, right? That I think there's a good future there for Xbox. We talked about ARM, and we know from the leaks that they were at least looking at that. ARM makes sense on these kinds of devices, you know. We'll see. I honestly they're going to have a hard time getting past hardware.
I don't think they would do that, primarily because their core audience is not handheld gamers, and so if you ship something that's handheld gaming first, like to me, if Xbox came out with a device just like you described, that's designed to be like, I don't know if I would honestly buy it. And I've been a lifelong Xboxer.
Given enough power, whatever that means in the context, anything is possible, right? So what I mean by that is I've had limited or no success to date playing things like AAA games on Xbox Cloud Gaming. But with Call of Duty Black Ops 6, they apparently bumped up the amount of throughput and power and whatever they're giving this stuff, and it works pretty good. Like, it's good enough to play single player, certainly. Multiplayer, I've done it, and I've even had a positive KD, but it's not great, right? But given enough power, that's possible. So if you could do that on a handheld and it's streaming or part of it's streaming, we're going to see a nice experiment, as soon as this week or next week, with the new Flight Simulator, see how that goes, right? A lot of that's going to be streaming.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. But, you just said something really interesting, that handheld gaming is not core, or is not interesting to the core Xbox audience, I think, or whatever, however you said it. And you're right. And that's the problem. The problem is the core Xbox audience is too small, and they need to branch out to this other stuff. So
I don't know. My doctor might say I'm not as small as I.
well, you know what I'm saying? Like, in other words,
Yeah.
look, I'm not I have played complete games through on an iPad, right? That Walking Dead,
Yeah.
Telltale, whatever that company, which I think is now gone. So that, like, but I'm not like a mobile gamer. I don't think of myself that way. That said, and this is something you should look at. You have an iPad now. Throw an Xbox controller on that thing. Hop into Call of Duty Mobile. I think you'd be shocked at how good it is. Like, and Warzone's there too, I guess. I don't even remember playing that, other than the time I played Warzone. For some reason, you could play normal Call of Duty levels, and I got to play some classic Call of Duty stuff in there. But you should look at that. Like, the world is changing. So
Look, I have no interest in trying the devil's elixir. I like my console. I will
well
continue.
But okay, but
Don't-
the
don't
things
leave
about
me
the
behind.
console. Well, no, but what's the point? Like, why would someone choose a console? Like honestly, it's simplicity.
Yep.
It's speed to, click and you're in. Mobile has all that stuff, and it's with you all the time. Now, look, you don't commute to work per se. You're not going to be, you don't have these downtime opportunities or whatever. But I think for a lot of people, certainly kids, or kids, people my kids' age, right, who are actually adults, I guess. My kids both have Switches, right? So my son grew up playing Xbox and then gaming PCs, but I bet, and he still has a gaming PC, but I bet he spends most of his time on mobile devices. And this is a shift. I mean, for Xbox to be successful, it has to be much more than that core audience. To me, the core audience for Xbox,
The core audience is over on PlayStation, which is why they're not ruling it out. I mean,
but that's the thing. So if Xbox is primarily I don't know, group of game publishers, essentially game studios, obviously, look, you had this experience on Thurrott.com. We would write articles, and you as a writer, want your stuff to go out to the widest possible audience.
Yep.
And we used to have these discussions like, well, maybe this thing should be a Thurrott Premium article, maybe this should be whatever. And that's the problem. As a content creator, you're like, yeah, and I hear what you're saying, but realistically, like, I want my stuff, I want everyone to see it. I want as many people as possible to see it. And that's what Xbox is trying to do. So the people, the thing I try to communicate, the thing, and I feel, I feel this is true, is Xbox games being on PlayStation, being on Nintendo, being on PC, whatever it might be, being on mobile, right, doesn't hurt you if you are a Xbox console fan and user, right? In some ways, it will help you depending on the game. One of the greatest things that happened to Call of Duty over the years was the ability to play against people who were on other consoles, right? And then PC. And now I've done it on game streaming. Nobody cares what I could be doing it on an iPad. So that's a good future, generally speaking. And you want the business. I don't mean you, Brad. I mean the people who complain about the stuff. You want Xbox to be successful, right? So this is how they're going to be successful. That's why they spent $68 million. They didn't spend it to lock all those games down to a console no one uses, right? I don't know. To me, this is just if everyone should read this Bloomberg article, read and pay attention to what he says. There's a couple little details there, but fundamentally, nothing he says is contrary to what they've been saying all along. It's just, we want to reach this audience. There's whatever the audience for gaming is, billions of people.
Yeah.
There are only some low tens of millions. No, not even, right? Yeah, no, I guess low tens of millions of people on Xbox consoles. The Sony PlayStation 5, the latest one, I think it just crossed the 60 million mark. The lowest selling
is. PC's got to be north of that.
PC, like gaming PC?
Yeah.
Oh, well north of that. It's got to be hundreds of million, right? Yeah, it's definitely bigger than that. Gaming PCs are probably, I don't remember, it's hard. You get numbers from different places, different times, whatever, but based on my memory, which is not great, it's roughly as big as all consoles combined. Is my rough idea. So Sony 60, Microsoft 20, 30, whatever it is. I mean, and then you add in previous gen, and it's much more. Nintendo, we know, is going to be, the Switch is going to be their best-selling device of all time. So, and then the next one will be compatible, and that's a good platform. It's good, like it's a good audience, and so gaming PC is probably as big as all of that, or roughly, right? I mean, it's big.
Which is why I really think the next console, whatever it is going to be much closer aligned to the PC than even what we see this generation.
I do too. I really do think that they're trying to, not trying to wait, but they want to make ARM make sense there, and I think it can. And maybe it's the introduction of a player like NVIDIA that has incredible graphics, or AMD could do this too as well, obviously. And then you've got this platform that game makers can write to that will work across these things, right? They should call it the universal platform, Brad. It's a genius idea. It's never not worked, but it's kind of the holy grail, right?
Is it?
Isn't it? I don't know.
Right once.
As long as it has WinUI 3, I think it'll be fine.
Built on sort of fluid framework.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the only other thing that's exciting that's going on today that I got to go deal with now that this podcast is over is we're releasing Desktop GPT 1.0.
Yes.
Which will be...
That's so exciting.
Yes, 1.0 release. Yay, and then we can move on to other fun stuff. So.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll talk about that tomorrow.